Now, I know Jalen Hurts was bad. I know, like, Jalen Hurts looked terrible against the Bears. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. There's no getting around it. He looked bad. I gotta admit, he did look bad against the Bears. But that game does not make Jalen Hurts a bad quarterback. Like, Jalen Hurts having one out of two of only bad games this season does not make him a bad quarterback. Like Jalen Hurts, yes, he missed open receivers. He had definitely miscommunication, was not on the same page with his receivers for the most part. He turned the ball over, didn't take care of the football. He frankly didn't look as confident in this game as we've seen him look in the past. But having only one of the two bad games that he's had this season does not make him a bad quarterback. Like, he still has the best touchdown to turnover ratio in the NFL. He still has an average 107 passer rating in the NFL in this season so far. He's still the only quarterback with a perfect passer rating in a game this season. And it's just like, there's no way we can say just because he had a bad game against the Bears, his second bad game of the season, that makes Jalen Hurts a bad quarterback. Because if we're going to say that, we got to apply that logic to everybody else. If we're going to say Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback after his game against the Bears, then we got to say Josh Allen is a bad quarterback. We got to say Jordan Love is a bad quarterback. We got to say Bryce Young is a bad quarterback. We got to say Lamar Jackson is a bad quarterback. All guys who have had multiple bad games this season, more bad games than what Jalen Hurts has had this season. If we're going to say Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback because of the way he played against the Bears, then we have to apply that same logic to those other guys who have also had bad games this season. We got to keep the energy the same. There's no way we can say after one game, after one bad game, one of the only two bad games that he's had this season, that Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. There's no way we can say that. Like, when we look at this offense, we can't keep shifting the blame just to Jalen Hurts. Like, Jalen Hurts is not the problem on this offense. The problem is Kevin Patullo. Like, last year, this Eagles offense was the best offense in the NFL. It had an MVP, Offensive Player of the Year candidate, or Offensive Player of the Year in Saquon Barkley, was the league's leading rushing attack. It's the same offense that dominated the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. This is the same offense, same offensive line, same skill players, same quarterback. The only difference, the biggest difference in this offense from last year to this year is Kevin Patullo. Like, nothing else has changed. Like, aside from Mekhi Becton, nothing else has changed in this offense other than the play caller. Kevin Patullo is the problem. If this offense, the same offense last year, was the unit in the NFL, was the most talented group in the NFL, was the best offense in the NFL, was a Super Bowl winning offense, to then looking at this year now being one of the bottom ranked offenses in the NFL, a unit that ranks lower than the Ravens, who haven't had Lamar Jackson most of the season, the Bengals, who haven't had Joe Burrow for most of the season, the Bucks, who have been injured all season, the Jags, who have had their fair share of issues, especially in the receiver room, and the Jets. The biggest difference between last year's Super Bowl winning offense and this year's offense that ranks lower than all of those teams I just named in yards per game and points per game, the biggest difference is the play caller. Kevin Patullo is the difference between last year's offense and this year's offense. There's no way we can say Jalen Hurts is the problem. Jalen Hurts is not the problem in this offense. Now, I will say execution hasn't been perfect. Execution has not been where it should be. But at the end of the day, that really stems from play calling as well. The issues of this offense, they come from the play calling. It stems with the play calling. The play calling has just decreased the confidence in this offense. Like, the issues in this offense, like, play calling is at the biggest fault for why this offense is performing the way it's performing. Like it's the biggest fault. Kevin Patullo is the biggest difference between these two units. And honestly, Kevin Patullo has single-handedly ruined the best offense in the NFL. And we can see that just on the on-field chemistry. We can see that in the on-field chemistry of the offensive line, in terms of their cohesion, their combo blocks, and we can see that in the connection between Jalen Hurts and his receivers. Like Jalen Hurts Jalen Hurts not being on the same page as his receivers is Kevin Patullo's fault. Like that miscue between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith against the Bears, where, Devontae Smith, I believe, had an option route where he could have run a hitch or a slant based off the reaction of the defense, based off reading the defense. Jalen Hurts thought he was going to run a hitch. Devontae Smith was, obviously ran a slant, ended up not connecting on that throw near the red zone. That miscue between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith doesn't happen without the Patullo effect. The Patullo effect, which has put such a cap on the passing game, not putting Jalen Hurts and his receivers, not really giving them ample opportunities to connect on plays like that, throwing off their connection. That's what's caused this miscommunication between Hurts and his receivers. That miscue between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith is just a symptom of the poor play calling and system that Kevin Patullo has facilitated in Philly. You don't get that miscue between Hurts and Devontae Smith without Kevin Patullo calling the plays that he's been calling. You don't get that miscue without the Patullo effect. Like the play calling has honestly alienated the talent on this group instead of utilizing it. Like the offense, like the way this offense is run, it hasn't allowed Hurts to build a sustainable, a meaningful rhythm with his receivers, which has thrown off their connection, which is why you continue to see miscues between Hurts and A.J. Brown and between Hurts and Devontae Smith. And honestly, it's just the play calling doesn't maximize the strengths of the skill players in this offense. Like it doesn't put these skill players in a position to succeed at all. It doesn't put them in a position to succeed at all. Like we see very little pre-snap motions. We see very little variety in route concepts. Like we see very little play action fakes. Like we don't see as advanced of an offense as we have seen from this Eagles unit in the past. It's very basic. Like we don't see maneuvers within this offense that try to throw a defense off track, that try to throw a defense off and be unpredictable to a defense. Like we don't see many disguises. We don't see much movement before the snap. We don't see much play action at all. It's just this offense alienates the talent in this group, as opposed to utilizing the talent in this group. And it's honestly scary. Like if you look at this offense, if we look at this Eagles offense, this is an offense that has 3 offensive player of the year caliber players. Saquon Barkley, who is the reigning offensive player of the year, 2,000-yard rusher. A.J. Brown, who is a top 3 receiver, arguably the most talented receiver in the NFL, who only has 1 season with under 1,000 yards aside from this season. And Devontae Smith, who is a Heisman winner, one of the top 3 number 2 receivers in the NFL. An offense with those 3 guys, to have an offense with those 3 guys and it to be this basic and limited, that shows you how bad of a job Kevin Patullo is doing. It shows you how bad of a job Kevin Patullo is doing. Like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith only run 2 types of routes: stops and hitches and slants. Saquon Barkley mainly just gets inside zone runs. Very little variety in the run game. We don't see this offense maximizing off of its potential. Like we don't see this offense utilizing these 3 guys. Three guys who in the right system with the right targets could all be offensive player of the year candidates. Like for an offense to have these like this type of talent and to not utilize it, that's not a quarterback issue. That's a play calling issue. That's a coordinator issue. That shows you how bad of a job Patullo is doing. The fact that we have three guys who could be potential offensive player of the year candidates, but for them to be underperforming the way that they are this year. That is a coordinator issue. That's a coordinator issue. Like this offense, an offense that has three offensive player of the year caliber guys in Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith. There's almost no variety in this scheme. Like, why don't we see AJ Brown and Devontae Smith running more complex route concepts? Like, why don't we see them running more post corner concepts? Why don't we see them running more sluggo double move routes? You know, putting a DB in a position to bite at the bait. Why don't we see them running deep crossers? Like, why don't we see them moving around why don't we see them moving around in the alignment? Like, why don't we see AJ Brown ever lining up in the slot? We don't see much of Devontae Smith lined up in the slot either. Like, why don't we ever see AJ Brown and Devontae Smith ever lined up on the same side? Why don't we see more creativity in the run game? Like, why did we stop running jet sweeps with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith? Why are we using Saquon Barkley as if he's just a third down back, like as if he's a prime A.J. Dillon, just running him straight up the A-gap, straight up the middle every play? Why aren't we seeing Tank Bigsby hardly at all? Like, there are so many questions. Like, why is this offense, with all the talent that it has, a Super Bowl MVP, 3 Offensive Player of the Year caliber guys, why, as talented of an offensive line as we have, why is this offense as limited as it is? Why is this offense, why are we not seeing more creativity within the scheme? It doesn't make any sense. This offense raises more questions than it answers. Watching this team play, it raises more questions than answers. Like this offense, and honestly, looking at the Super Bowl MVP part, we already know the offense doesn't put the 3 Offensive Player of the Year caliber guys in a position to succeed. But it doesn't do that for our reigning Super Bowl MVP either. This offense does not allow Jalen Hurts to show his ability as a dual threat quarterback. Like, we hardly ever see any RPOs. We don't see any more read options. We don't see any play action fakes. We're talking about a guy that has the most seasons with 10 or more rushing touchdowns, that has the 2 best rushing performances in Super Bowl history by a quarterback. He currently is top 5 in total touchdowns, yet this offense does not allow him to show off his mobility. To have a quarterback like that, like Jalen Hurts, that has accomplished everything Jalen Hurts has accomplished, especially with his legs, this offense still runs little to no RPOs, no read options, no play action fakes. It's just there's no room in this offense for Jalen Hurts to show his ability as a dual threat quarterback. A guy who has proven to be one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL. It honestly doesn't make any sense. Kevin Patullo is like the way Kevin Patullo runs this offense. It honestly makes all of the elite talent that the Eagles have, it makes these guys look mid. Like Kevin Patullo is such a bad coordinator. He's making all of the elite talent on the Eagles offense look mid. Like these are just average guys. Like these are just Jags. Just guys. Kevin Patullo is such a bad coordinator. He's making AJ Brown look like he's not an elite receiver. Kevin Patullo is such a bad coordinator. He's making Devontae Smith look like he is not an elite number 2 receiver. Kevin Patullo is so bad as a coordinator, he is making the reigning offensive player of the year, an MVP candidate in Saquon Barkley, look like just a guy. Kevin Patullo is such a bad coordinator. He is making Jalen Hurts a Super Bowl MVP, an MVP candidate, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, look mid. Kevin Patullo is honestly the worst offensive coordinator the Eagles have had during this Sirianni era. He's the worst one. He's the worst offensive coordinator that the Eagles have had since under Nick Sirianni's tenure. And it's getting to a point, like watching the Eagles play, it's honestly getting to a point where I'm ready to say Kevin Patullo might be as bad or worse of a presence for this Eagles team in comparison to Chip Kelly. Like, honestly, watching this offense operate, Kevin Patullo might be as bad or worse of a presence for this Eagles team than Chip Kelly. Like, if you're looking at both of those coaches, both prioritized personnel over scheme. Both prioritize, both prioritize scheme over personnel. Looking at both of those coaches, both prioritize their system over results, scheme over personnel. Neither one adapted their scheme or system to the talent that they had in their respective offenses. Like, no matter what was going on in the game, no matter how the season was going, neither one was willing to mold their scheme to the players on their offense. They prefer to force their talent into the scheme, which makes no sense. Like, neither one molded the scheme to the strength of their players. Like, in terms of play calling, Chip Kelly ran a tempo offense, continued to run a tempo offense, even when it hurt the defense and wore down the defense before coming back on the field, because the offense was spending little to no time on the field. Kevin Patullo refuses to adjust his scheme to the players, to the elite talent that he has on the field. Like, both coaches wasted loaded offenses and disrupted the momentum that their units had created prior to their arrival. Like, Chip Kelly dismantled a playoff caliber offense, and Kevin Patullo is destroying a Super Bowl winning offense. Like, both of these coaches prioritized scheme over players, system over talent. Both of these coaches refused to adapt to in-game situations. And both of these coaches completely dismantled their high performing, high caliber offenses. Like, both coaches were momentum stoppers to their offenses. Like, honestly, you honestly could say Kevin Patullo is worse of a coach and coordinator than Chip Kelly was for the Eagles. You honestly could say he's worse because Chip Kelly at least had a plan. They both suck, but Chip Kelly at least had a plan. He intentionally dismantled the playoff caliber offense that we had. He intentionally got rid of Deshaun Jackson. He intentionally got rid of LaShawn McCoy. He intentionally alienated Michael Vick. Kevin Patullo is destroying this offense by accident. Like, Kevin Patullo doesn't even look like he knows what he's doing. Chip Kelly at least had a plan. Kevin Patullo is unintentionally watering down a Super Bowl winning offense. Chip Kelly did what he did to an offense that really never really had a shot to prove what they could be, never really had ample time to prove what they could grow into. Kevin Patullo is destroying an offense that not just won the Super Bowl last year, but dominated the Super Bowl last year, basically destroying a dynasty in the Chiefs. You could say Kevin Patullo is worse of a coach and coordinator than Chip Kelly, which is crazy to say. I never thought as an Eagles fan I would live to see the day where we have a worse coach and coordinator in office than Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is like Chip Kelly was a nightmare for this in Eagles history. Chip Kelly is one of the most blatant stains on this Eagles franchise in all of its history. I never thought as an Eagles fan I would live to see the day where we see someone worse than Chip Kelly. Someone do a worse job than Chip Kelly. Kevin Patullo proved me wrong. Kevin Patullo more than proved me wrong because Patullo is by far worse than Chip Kelly. A man with a plan is better than nothing. Chip Kelly was at least a man with a plan. It was a stupid plan. It was a god-awful plan. It was a ridiculous plan that got him kicked out of the NFL. I never thought I would see someone worse than that come in. Kevin Patullo is a man with no plan. Kevin Patullo is someone just coasting along. Like Kevin Patullo is much worse than Chip Kelly. And it honestly, it makes me want to throw up saying this. I would rather Chip Kelly than Kevin Patullo. At least Chip Kelly would have a plan. Kevin Patullo not only doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't have a plan. Like, it's honestly pick your poison in terms of trying to decide who was worse for this Eagles team between Chip Kelly and Kevin Patullo. Chip Kelly will get rid of all your talent that he doesn't like. He'll get rid of all your elite talent he doesn't like, but he'll at least have a plan in doing so. Kevin Patullo has absolutely no plan and has absolutely no idea what he is doing on this Eagles team. And honestly, like, Kevin Patullo just has to go. Kevin Patullo has to go. There is no reason why Kevin Patullo should still be the offensive coordinator for this Eagles team. Looking at this offense right now, this offense ranks near the bottom of the league in yards per game and points per game. It's become the most predictable offense in the NFL. It struggles to adapt to in-game situations despite what's going on, despite the lack of success. Like, Kevin Patullo has destroyed the chemistry, the on-field chemistry of this offense. Kevin Patullo has destroyed the on-field chemistry of this offensive line. He has destroyed the on-field chemistry of Jalen Hurts and his receivers. And he's single-handedly put together and is responsible for the worst offensive run in the Nick Sirianni era. The worst offensive run in the Nick Sirianni era. If Brian Johnson can be fired and replaced during the season, Kevin Patullo can be fired and replaced during the season. Like, there is no reason why a Super Bowl winning offense in its following year, in its year trying to go back to back, there's no reason this offense should go from dominating in the Super Bowl, being the best offense in the NFL, to then ranking below a Ravens team without Lamar Jackson, a Bengals team without Joe Burrow, a injured Bucs team, the Jaguars this year, and a Jets offense in yards per game and points per game. There's no reason an offense should have that big of a decline in just 1 year, and the offensive coordinator still keeps his job. There's no reason an offensive coordinator should still keep its job after being responsible for that drastic of a decline. Kevin Patullo has to go. Kevin Patullo has to go. And honestly, looking at guys that I would like to see replace Kevin Patullo, there are 4 names that come to mind that I think would be great replacements for Kevin Patullo moving forward. When I think of replacements for Kevin Patullo, I think about Eric Bieniemy. I think about Joe Brady. I think about Brian Daboll. And I think about Marcus Brady. All 4 of those coordinators either have a championship pedigree, championship experience. They either have familiarity with the Eagles as an organization or personnel wise, or they or they have experience in working with a dual threat quarterback. Like all of these coordinators have something to offer to this offense specifically in terms of why they would be a great fit for this scheme. They're either winners, they either have experience developing and working with a dual threat quarterback, or they have familiarity with this organization or those that are in this organization. Like if you look at Eric Bieniemy, Eric Bieniemy is a champion, two-time champion with the Kansas City Chiefs. His last season as the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, he led the league in the Chiefs led the league in scoring with 30 points per game. They tallied 14 wins, securing the first seed in the AFC that year and tying the franchise record for most wins in a season. Patrick Mahomes was an MVP, putting up a career high 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns. And Travis Kelce tallied his second most career receiving yards in a single season. And clearly, Eric Bieniemy does good things for an offense. Eric Bieniemy helped develop Patrick Mahomes into what he grew into. He helped develop Travis Kelce Mahomes duo into what they've become. He's shown capable of orchestrating a creative offense, being that the Chiefs were one of the most creative offenses in the NFL during his tenure. Like Eric Bieniemy has proven capable of not only engineering a creative offense, but also knowing how to tailor that offense to the dual threat ability of his quarterback. And as we've seen, that translates in Super Bowls. Eric Bieniemy joining a Super Bowl winning offense and a Super Bowl winning quarterback in Jalen Hurts would be the perfect combination. It would be the perfect combination. And right now, as the running backs coach for the Bears, who won't be looking for an OC anytime soon because of obviously Ben Johnson's experience as a play caller, Eric Bieniemy is a guy looking for his next shot. He's a guy looking for his next opportunity at that top spot. And he's a guy that wouldn't turn into a head coach immediately. Like Eric Bieniemy is a guy that the Eagles could possibly hold on to for at least 2 years, maybe 3. Eric Bieniemy would be the perfect choice for this Eagles team as the next offensive coordinator. And honestly, he's my number one pick for the job. My number one pick for the job. Someone else who I think would be great for this Eagles offense is Joe Brady. Someone else who I think would be great for this Eagles offense is Joe Brady. Joe Brady, there's rumors that the Bills might be firing him after this season, after sort of this drop in production from this offensive group. If that happens, if the Bills get rid of Joe Brady, the Eagles should be right there for the rebound. The Eagles should be right there for the rebound because Joe Brady is a proven play caller. Joe Brady, during his first season as the offensive coordinator for the Bills became the first offense with 30 or more receiving touchdowns and 30 or more rushing touchdowns in a single season. They led the league in scoring with over 30 points per game, and they led the league in total points with over 600. And Josh Allen in that year was both an MVP and all-pro guy. Joe Brady has not only shown capable of engineering a creative offense with less talent, he's also shown capable of being able to tailor that offense and utilizing the talents of his dual threat quarterback. And he's shown capable of allowing that offense to produce. Joe Brady would be a great candidate for the OC job in Philly. If Joe Brady can do what he did with a less talented Bills offense, if Joe Brady can do what he did, put up the numbers that he did with that Bills offense, imagine what he would be able to do with an Eagles offense. Imagine what he would be able to, like, Joe Brady coming to the Eagles would actually allow him to beat Patrick Mahomes. Like, beating Patrick Mahomes is not something that Joe Brady has experience in because of his time in Buffalo. The Bills don't have much luck in beating Mahomes. The Eagles do. The Eagles do. With the creativity that Joe Brady can bring to an offense, with the experience that he has in working with a dual threat and multi-talented quarterback, there's no question Joe Brady would be able to do great things in this offense with the Eagles. There's no question. And honestly, bringing in Joe Brady would be a plus because that's another guy who the Eagles would be able to hold on to for longer than a year. That's another guy the Eagles would be able to sort of build a foundation with, build a sustainable and repeatable system with for the second time, only the second time in Jalen Hurts' career as an Eagle. Like, the Eagles want to bring in a talented play caller, but you also want to bring in a play caller that you can hold on to for at least more than a year. Bringing in Joe Brady would do that. Bringing in Eric Bieniemy would do that. If you bring in Joe Brady or Eric Bieniemy, this Eagles offense would see new heights. Like that, like bringing in Eric Bieniemy or Joe Brady would be the closest to what the Eagles have had to being a advanced, high-powering offense since Shane Steichen. Eric Bieniemy or Joe Brady would be the best offensive play caller that the Eagles have had since Shane Steichen. And honestly, call me crazy. I would love to see at some point if Nick Sirianni were to somehow lose his job because of his continued faith in Patullo, like if Patullo were to continue to drag Sirianni down to where Howie Roseman decides to let them both go, I would love to see Doug Peterson reunite with this Eagles organization. I would love to see the strategic offensive wizardry mind of Doug Peterson reunite with Jalen Hurts. And this is way more of a talented offense than what we had when Doug Peterson was last our head coach. Like, I would love to see Doug Peterson come back to a Philly organization that has now a Super Bowl MVP quarterback in Jalen Hurts, that has an elite receiver duo in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, that has an offensive player of the year player in Saquon Barkley. Like, I would love to see Doug Peterson reunite with this Eagles organization if Nick Sirianni were to somehow find himself fired by Howie Roseman. I think I think a reunion between Doug Peterson and this offense, I think would be a monumental move for this franchise if certain things were to go down within these next couple of months. Doug Peterson coming back to the city would be different. Like Doug, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because Doug Peterson, he's familiar with the organization. He's obviously familiar with the personnel. He's familiar with Jalen Hurts. He's familiar with Devontae Smith. He's really familiar with Saquon Barkley from having to play him twice a year. Like, Doug Peterson reuniting with this Eagles organization would be special. But looking at, like, I know that's not as likely as bringing in just a new OC. I do think bringing in Eric Bieniemy, bringing in Joe Brady, bringing in Marcus Brady, bringing in Brian Daboll even, I think bringing in any of those four guys would give this Eagles offense the jumpstart that it needs because of what they all bring to the table. Marcus Brady obviously being familiar with this organization, being familiar with Jalen Hurts and being familiar with the passing game. Brian Daboll being familiar with the organization after having, obviously coming from a team that after playing them twice a year, being familiar with Saquon Barkley. Joe Brady and Eric Bieniemy being experienced in engineering just creative and diverse offenses, used to being in the playoffs, being their experience in working with dual threat quarterbacks. I think any one of those guys would make a great offensive coordinator for this Eagles offense. But that's all we got for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms, and I'll be back later on with more Shameless Take.